Okay, so let's get started. Today's webinar, this is the fourth webinar in our PGAM month, and today is transition and proliferation of gambling from a technological and availability standpoint, 1978 to present. My name is Greg Gioe. I am the peer recovery specialist here at CCGNJ. And before I start working here, I actually have a 21-year history in the casino industry. Worked at 5 different properties, various titles: regulatory compliance officer, director of customer service, security manager. So this is something that's really close to my heart because half of those 45 years I was directly in the industry. So today's webinar, we have a couple goals. Understand the role of gambling in history, and we're going to go way back for a couple slides before we get to the modern role of gambling. The growth of gambling, the exponential growth of gambling in the last 45 years, the cultural impact of gambling, and the impact of the mobile casino sportsbook on the gambling industry. So that's a lot to cover in a little under an hour. And I want to leave time for questions, so I am going to get started. Before we can talk about gambling, currently, we got to talk a little bit about history. Gambling, in American history, 1776, there was a lottery to help finance the War of Independence. But gambling in America has had a varied history from prohibition to legalization to prohibition. The 19th century and early 20th century, the religious fervor around the Great Awakenings caused lotteries and other games of chance to be marginalized and become illegal in many states, forcing the games underground. But if you go back even farther than 1776, gambling dates back, honestly, before written history. The earliest 6-sided dice were discovered in Mesopotamia at about 3000 BC. Before that, before dice, they would actually roll bones. They were called astrogally. The bones are actually small knuckle bones from small mammals, and they would decorate them, and they would actually throw them for their games of chance before dice. Hold on. There we go. So by 1917, there were only 11 horse tracks in operation. In the 1880s, a high of over 300. Then came the Great Depression. Nevada legalized most gambling. It was the first state to do so in response to the Great Depression because they needed to fund their state coffers. In the modern era, which I define as the 60s forward, New Hampshire was the first state to authorize a lottery, followed by New York and New Jersey. And the reason this happened was this was seen as a way for the states to raise money off an activity that was previously owned by organized crime. It was thought that if we took it out of the shadows and we legalized it and we monitored it and we had it state run, it would be fair for the people that actually were taking in the activity. Then comes the 70s and the movies about gambling. How many people have seen this movie? It's a gritty film, and it really portrays the problem gambler as his true self. A man being chased by the illegal bookmakers he owes thousands to. This is not someone to be emulated. This is not someone you aspire to be. This is the gambler at their worst, going down a hole of their own making, getting bailed out and then wasting the bailout. Honestly, this movie kind of portrays the attitude around problem gamblers, how they were seen in the 70s in media. It was not a savvy place to be. You didn't want to be a problem gambler. So let's talk about gambling in the modern era. In 1976, the New Jersey residents voted for the Casino Control Act. It passed by a narrow margin, which basically created a special district in Atlantic City to reinvigorate tourism and bring prosperity back to the area. The first casino was Resorts. It was the first one to open in 1978. In that first year, they had $224 million in gross gaming revenue and the win of $62 million. The state collected $18 million in tax revenue. For reference, in 2023, the state collected close to 526 million tax dollars on 5.2 billion in revenue, not including lottery. In 1980, Atlantic City's poverty rate before we brought gaming in was 25%. For comparison, at the time, Kansas was at 34.2%. So Atlantic City was in dire straits. And the idea behind gambling was, we're going to get all these people, all this money. We're going to open up gambling outside of Vegas, and we're going to reinvent the city. So by 1980, there were 6 casinos dotting the Atlantic City boardwalk. And gross gaming revenue grew by over 50% each year. 1984 was a seminal year for gaming, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people don't know this. That was the year that slot machine revenue overtook table games revenue, and this was welcomed by many casinos and many investors. Many casino companies are publicly traded. That started with Harrah's in the early 70s. They were the first pure casino company to go public. Table games, as much as the house has an advantage, they are far riskier. You can have someone come in with a large bankroll and literally get lucky and take you on a weekend so badly it can affect your stock price. This actually happened to Caesars Entertainment back in 1998. Somebody hit the Rio on a weekend and it affected their quarterly earning reports. So investors and the casinos themselves really do prefer slot machines because the hold is much more consistent. And in 1992, the year that I turned 21, so this is personal to me, casino floors stay open in Jersey 24/7, 365. Before then, they would close every night. This really started transforming the industry into the behemoth we see today. Who remembers that noise? Come on, you've all heard that noise before. When people think of slots, they picture, at least if you're old enough, buckets of coins and the clinking of the payout tray. But those sounds are now sadly piped into the casinos. Starting in 1992, ticket in, ticket out technology started taking over the casinos. This basically did away with the coins and all the dirt. I remember going to the casinos and you would have your hands be black from all the coins you handled. Ticket in and ticket out was much less labor intensive, but there were growing pains. The problem with ticket in, ticket out is everything is run by a central computer. If there's a glitch, the whole floor can go down. And what that means is everyone's tickets can't be cashed in and you have to manually cash them all out. I've lived through that. It can take up to 12 to 14 hours to clean up after ticket in, ticket out goes out of order. Luckily, as we progress, the technology's gotten much better and those outages are very few and far between. Previously, to ticket in, ticket out, you would see these large trolleys pulled by an electric cart that they would collect the coin from every machine. And then they had these huge machines to count the coin, roll it, and prepare it for the bank. Now they just have soft count, which is dollars and tens and fives, much easier to deal with, a lot less labor. We can't talk about gambling in the United States if we don't talk about Indian gambling. Indian gambling started off small enough in the 1970s when a tribe in Florida opened a high-stakes bingo hall to help the tribe's finances. But it really came to prominence in 1988 when the Tribal Gaming Compact came into effect, creating a compromise between the states and the tribal governments that led to a flurry of Indian casinos. For example, in 1986, Foxwood opened, but in 1992, they installed table games and slot machines to complement the bingo. Mohegan's Sun followed suit and opened in 1996, but these are only a few of the Indian casinos that exist in this nation. There are 515 Indian casinos across the nation, and they account for 44% of the national annual gaming revenue. Indian gaming is really big business. I mean, look at the Hard Rock. That's owned by Seminoles right here in Atlantic City. But Indian gaming is really big business. Literally billions of dollars go to the tribes because of Indian gaming. Then the internet came. And as the internet reinvented everything from communication to finance to many people's jobs, it also reinvented gaming. This all started in the 90s. Antigua and Barbuda, that is not a typo, that's the name of the island, created a free trade zone, which is a haven for offshore bookmakers to take phone bets. So people could dial in these offshore bookmakers and place a bet. The very first online casino to take real money bets was Intercasino, based out of Antigua in 1996. And that was the inauspicious beginning of what become a billion-dollar industry. Poker first went online for real cash stakes in 1998, right prior to the big poker boom of 2000. Interestingly, the United States federal government essentially bans internet gambling with the Internet Gambling Prohibition and Enforcement Act. Now, according to the overview posted on the website for the government, the act prohibits gambling businesses from restricted transactions. That's when they transmit money over state lines that normally comes from gambling or wagers over the internet. This is going to figure in pretty prominently in a couple of slides because this act was enforced in, I believe it was 2011, and they call that Black Friday. But literally, it basically banned online gambling in the United States, essentially. But before we talk about more poker, let's talk about the rise of the multi-state lottery. Now, the lottery started in New Jersey in 1967, or 1969, I apologize. And it was pick 3, pick 4. We had scratch-offs came later. The pick 6 came, pick 5. But really, the face of lottery is Powerball and Mega Millions. Powerball started in 1992 and Mega Millions in 96. And those jackpots that they drive are really what's the face of the lottery today. Powerball changed its odds, made it harder to win in 2015, and it got its first billion-dollar jackpot in 2016. Mega Millions followed in 2017 and is also achieving billion-dollar jackpots. Every time we see a billion-dollar jackpot, the spike in calls we get after it's won is incredible. The night that the jackpot goes off, I come in the next day expecting to be talking to a lot of problem gamblers. People probably aren't aware, but the current odds of winning a Powerball jackpot are 1 in over 290 million, and a Mega Millions 1 in over 300 million. There are so many activities you could do and not be, and not willing. You can be bitten by a shark twice with those odds. This is why lottery is getting these billion-dollar jackpots, and it's big business. And that last year, New Jersey, in lottery profits, took in $1.1 billion on $3.6 billion in sales. It really helps fund our coffers, and it goes a lot towards retirement, education. It's big business. Let's look, now we're fast forwarding from the 70s to Ocean's 11. This is a wholesale difference in how Hollywood is reimagining the gambler. And it wasn't just Ocean's 11. You know, look at those guys. Who wouldn't want to be George Clooney or Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11? They've got swagger, they're suave, they get the girl, they get the money. They make gamblers look really cool, but it wasn't just this movie. I mean, look at Iron Man, a Marvel movie. In the opening scenes, Tony Stark is at a Las Vegas casino, I think it's Caesars, beating the craps table because a smart engineer can always beat a random game. I would argue that we are now portraying gambling as something to be glamorous as opposed to something to be avoided. It's a wholesale cultural shift because We went from an environment where gambling was highly illegal and very rarely seen outside of Vegas and then Atlantic City, to an environment where we're constantly immersed in a gambling culture, even from our films and our media. Atlantic City's high watermark for revenue occurred in 2006. That they had brought in $5.2 billion in revenue in 2006. That's the year before the PA market fully engaged. Unfortunately, that wasn't to last for the city. The first PA casino, known as Parks now, went live in December of 2006. Within 2 years of introduction of gambling to Pennsylvania, AC casino revenues were dropping by over 7% a year every year. This most recent year, the brick and mortar facilities in Atlantic City brought in $2.8 billion from the 9 gambling halls. However, overall gross gambling revenue is approaching the 2006 levels thanks to online gaming and mobile sportsbook. I can tell you anecdotally, the time that I worked at Showboat, 50% of our revenue was bus trips out of the Philadelphia markets. When I looked at that number in 2005 and a job opening came up in Pennsylvania, I jumped at it because I was concerned, rightly so, that with so much of the market being dependent on a bus trips out of Philadelphia and the Pennsylvania market, with gaming in Pennsylvania, that was going to dry up, and it did. We know that several casinos ended up shuttering, like Trump Plaza, the Taj Mahal, Revel. It was a very ugly time for the gaming industry as gaming spread and Atlantic City no longer had a chokehold on the industry. Poker on TV as entertainment. Listen, Caesars bought the WSOP. They bought billions in 2004 and got the WSOP. And while that was a watershed moment, because you went from a medium-sized operator to the world's largest casino company owning it, this was also the middle of the poker boom. Poker in the early 2000s, it's hard to remember, but it was all the rage. And it also helped to popularize online tournaments because many players won their way into those $10,000 WSOP seats through tournaments that were online, or through feeder tournaments at various properties. At Harrah's Philadelphia, we used to have feeder tournaments where the winner of the tournament would get to go to Vegas and play the WSOP. But literally 1.6 million television viewers watched people play poker. That's an incredible statistic, and that should tell you how gambling became mainstream. These people became celebrities, these poker players. Of course, then came the Black Friday for online poker. April 15th, the Department of Justice shut down 3 poker sites that handled 95% of the poker play in the US. Absolute Poker, Full Tilt Poker, and Poker Stars. Basically, they were charged with fraudulently processing money through financial institutions because they knew the money came from gambling, and because of the Wire Act of 1962, you can't do that. Poker Stars, interestingly enough, of the 3 companies, is the only one that actually currently operates in the United States. They settled with the Department of Justice. They waited for the states to legalize poker, and they came back in. Full Tilt Poker, while it operates overseas, does not operate in the United States anymore. And Absolute Poker, actually, when they were seized, they didn't have enough money in their accounts to pay back all the players. And they ended up having all their assets seized and sold to try and give restitution to the people that they took their money from. But Poker Stars, interestingly enough, is also owned by Flutter Entertainment, which is the parent company of FanDuel and Paddy Power. So Poker Stars survived Black Friday and is now bigger than ever, but they're the only ones that actually worked with the DOJ to rectify the situation. All right, so let's talk about iGambling, because this is big business in New Jersey. New Jersey is one of 6 states to allow an online casino to be app on your phone. It starts in 2011. After the Department of Justice got done with PokerStars, Full Tilt, and Absolute Poker, they basically worked with Congress to decriminalize online gambling for the states. Every state has to decide whether they want it or not. There is no overall federal regulating body or regulation, but the states are free to choose if they want to have an online casino. Delaware chose yes in 2012. New Jersey followed Delaware's lead. Where this gets really big is 2018. Up until 2018, you could have an online casino, but you couldn't gamble on sports unless you were in Vegas legally. In 2018, the US Supreme Court overruled the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act. So states are now free to allow sports betting in their state as well, which really is opened up. Now, what's interesting is 6 states have internet casinos, 36 states have sports betting, 22 states have online sports betting. So it's a big business, it's big industry, and it's going from state to state. The next big targets, honestly, are California and Texas. That's what the industry is currently targeting. Online casinos in New Jersey have won over $4 billion from bettors since 2013, and that does not include sports betting. That's your online tables and slots. People are logging on all the time when they have a few minutes to get their fix in. Oh, fun factoid. Nevada does not allow online casinos as they're concerned with cannibalized business from its in-person options. So you can bet sportsbook, you can play poker online in Nevada, but if you want to play slot machines, you have to go to your local casino or Quickie Mart or wherever else are available. All right, June 2018, the Supreme Court lifts the ban on sports betting. Look at the New Jersey market since the legalization of mobile sportsbook. Revenue is up, annual revenue is up over 1,100% from 2014 to 2021. 1,100%. So while the casinos are flat or hardly growing, the online market is growing at a very healthy rate. Gambling, for many people, has become a habit as much as stopping to play a lottery ticket or getting a Milky Way on the ride home. It's something they do on a daily basis. It's becoming ingrained in the culture that this is a fun and normal way to have fun. And a lot of that is due to advertising. Sports books and casino operators spent $1.8 billion in advertising in 2022. They have inundated the airwaves, the internet. They've inundated our lives with ads depicting free bets, ads depicting people winning, having fun. Even the responsible gaming ads focus on fun. It's when the fun stops. To give you an idea of how much you're spending on advertising, only FanDuel is currently making a profit. The rest, like DraftKings, they're not scheduled to turn a profit until end of 23 or early 24 because of all the customer acquisition costs. They know that once they get a customer, if they can retain that customer, that is thousands of dollars over the life of that customer. That's why they're so willing to invest so heavily in sports betting, advertising, and in lucrative sign-on deals, deposit matches, free bets. The thing is, many of those offers really aren't free. They do depend on an initial deposit. And it's not like a deposit match you can just cash out. When you make that initial deposit and you activate the bonus, all that money then has to be played through before you can cash something out. That's why we're seeing a backlash in many states against this kind of advertising and this kind of misleading talking in the advertising. So let's talk about New Jersey specifically. In New Jersey, you have the option of placing a bet on the game at any of the casinos in Atlantic City, at the Meadowlands, Monmouth Park, or Freehold Raceway, and 30 online casinos that we have options for. In 2022, New Jersey sports books took in over $10 billion in bets. That's almost $1 billion a month, 94% of which were placed through a mobile app. Let's go backwards. When gambling in 1976 was first legalized in New Jersey, there was one casino. People wore a jacket and tie to go to it, and you couldn't bet on sports. Fast forward 45 years later, people spent $10 billion, 94% of which they did without even stepping foot into a casino. The online market is huge, and it's getting bigger. And this is after New York City opened up their market, which actually cannibalized some of New Jersey's business, because people used to come over the river to bet in Jersey because it was illegal in New York. From a business standpoint, New Jersey has a much more favorable tax situation for the operators than New York. New York, the tax on online sports books is about 50%. In New Jersey, I believe it's 13.5% for online and closer to 8.5% for in-person. We have a very friendly, many states that have legalized gambling since Jersey legalized it in the 70s have much more aggressive tax structures. And the casinos have gone in anyway. My experience at Harrah's, Philadelphia, we had an effective tax rate of 62%. 62 cents of every dollar that we took in literally went out on a to the state in one form or another, and we still made a profit. Casino gambling is extremely profitable. New Jersey, honestly, could probably raise their taxes a little bit, and it wouldn't really affect the operators' bottom lines compared to what they're paying in other states. Even though a couple operators are threatened to pull out of New York City because of the 50% tax rate. All right, let's talk about this. Let's have a couple minutes here and really dig into the last 45 years. The casinos went from Nevada, which is always considered the gambling capital of the United States, a couple of tribal bingo halls and resorts, to now we have in Pennsylvania, you have like 13 casinos in Pennsylvania. You have 9 at the shore. You have 30 online options. You can bet from your bedroom 24/7, 365. You don't have to leave the comforts of your bed. You couldn't bet on sports 45 years ago. Today, you can bet on the color of the Gatorade in 36 different states. Literally, FanDuel and DraftKings are pre-packaging parlays. You can buy pre-packaged parlays for sporting events. Why is this happening? Well, we all know that legislators are constantly battling budget deficits. People want services, but they don't want to pay for them. Lotteries and casinos seem a really paying way free of raising money. I mean, last year, New Jersey took in over $500 million from the casinos and over $1 billion from the lottery. But are they really pain free? And that's why I would argue that maybe they're not. Now, let's go back. Remember, we passed the Casino Control Act to reform Atlantic City and improve the environment there? When we passed that, the poverty rate was 25%. Fast forward 45 years, the poverty rate is 38%. So as much as we've made all this money and we've helped the state coffers and we've propped up education and we helped the elderly, we failed Atlantic City. We had a chance, honestly, to make it something more than it is now, but a combination of corruption and poor decision-making led us to this end. So the New Jersey mecca for gambling, honestly, is one of the poorest cities in the state. So there's always a bill to pay. When you look at the 45 years of gambling in this nation that we've gone from Nevada to New Jersey, it's all about states seeing money going over their borders. Pennsylvania legalized gambling because they realized that all their residents were going to New Jersey to gamble. So they figured if someone's going to get the tax revenue, why not us? As other states have followed route, you're getting more people that have gambling problems. You get more people that are exposed to gambling, and you get more people that are working in gambling. It's become a fixture in our lives. I don't think it's one that's going to go away in our lifetime. It may even get more pervasive as we go virtual on the metaverse, but that's for another presentation. While I have you all, I want you to mark your calendars. We are having our 40th anniversary gala honoring Arnie Wexler, Friday, June 9th from 5:30 to 9:30. There are ad and sponsorship opportunities available. Visit our website at 800gambler.org or call us at 609-588-5515. We hope to see you there. At this point, I'll take any and all questions.
All right, Greg, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. And I see the one, how much funding does New Jersey Lottery provide to problem gambling programs? New Jersey Lottery does not provide any funding to gambling programs. We get 4% basically of the casino funding, of what the casinos make. So we get nothing from sportsbook and we get nothing from lottery. Las Vegas casino floors were 24/7 from when the Flamingo opened. I don't know about before that. But thank you for asking, Anna. Any other questions? Well, you've been a great group. I appreciate the time that you spent with me this morning. I hope you learned something about the history of gambling. And oh yes, Anna, calls every time there's a $1 billion lottery. When that $1 billion lottery goes off, the day after, we get a call spike. The calls spike about 20% over normal. Anecdotally, the people that call, I get the calls, a lot of them, they usually, the lottery was, that was their last straw. That was their last hope. They were going to win the Mega Millions or the Powerball and to solve all their problems. And when they don't, they in desperation call us. Calls spiked after sport championships. Honestly, we were expecting one for the Super Bowl because the Eagles lost and we are located in Eagles country, and it did not happen. Calls are heavy during March Madness, but the Super Bowl this year, honestly, was a non-event for us.
So everybody's singing your praises, Greg. Just saying, great presentation. Thank you for the information.
Oh, I have the webinar chat right here. Very interesting. So happy to see everyone. All right, well, listen, that's my presentation. I hope you had a good time. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. It's gregory@800gambler.org. And after this webinar ends, you'll be directed to a SurveyMonkey survey. And after you complete that, you'll be able to redirect it to your certificate. Thank you and have a wonderful day.